Stories that shock, inspire, and stay with you. Welcome to another Spark. Buckle up, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Got a story of your own? Send it our way. That said, let's jump into the story.
I arrived in the UK with one suitcase, a borrowed coat that didn't quite fit, and a belief that if I just worked hard enough, everything would eventually make sense. That belief carried me for a long time. For the first few years, it was almost intoxicating. The accents, the cold mornings, the way people queued patiently for buses like life itself was orderly here. I remember standing at a bus stop one evening, rain seeping through my shoes, thinking, this is it. This is where my life begins. I told myself I was lucky. I told my family back home that things were moving forward. I sent photos when I could, nothing fancy, just me outside buildings that looked important enough to suggest progress. I learned early that hope sounds better when you say it confidently. Back then, I didn't measure life in years. I measured it in sacrifices. Missed birthdays. Missed weddings. Missed funerals. I told myself it was temporary. Just one more year. Just until things stabilized. Just until I got my papers sorted. Just until I was settled. The thing about survival mode is that it disguises itself as ambition. I worked jobs I never imagined I'd do. Night shifts that blurred into mornings. Roles where I was invisible unless something went wrong. I learned how to smile while being spoken over. How to nod while being underestimated. How to say yes even when my body was quietly screaming no. And still, I believed. I believed in the promise. In the system. In the idea that endurance would eventually be rewarded. I believed that one day I'd wake up and feel complete. There were moments of comfort too. Let me be honest about that. I found routines. A favorite supermarket aisle. A barber who remembered my name. A small circle of people who understood the unspoken language of migrants, the way we laughed loudly about small wins because we needed them to mean more. I even fell in love. More than once. Love, in those early years, felt like proof that I belonged. Like evidence that this place could hold me, and not just tolerate me. I clung to relationships tightly, sometimes too tightly, because they made the loneliness quieter. But even in those moments, there was a harm beneath everything. A low, persistent question I kept pushing away. Am I building a life, or just surviving inside one? I didn't ask it out loud. I didn't want to hear the answer. Instead, I focused on milestones. Papers. Permits. Renewals. Each letter from the home office felt like a verdict on my worth. Approval meant relief. Rejection meant panic. I lived between those two emotions for years, relief and panic, nothing in between. Time passed anyway. Quietly. Ruthlessly. 5 years became 10. 10 became 15. Friends back home built houses. Their children grew tall. Parents aged. I learned about death through voice notes and bad connections. I grieved through screens. Whenever doubt crept in, I silenced it with logic. This is the price of success, I told myself. This is what it takes. But the cracks were there long before I admitted them. I noticed them in the way I hesitated when people asked, so how's life? I noticed them in the way I avoided going home, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how to explain myself anymore. I noticed them when I realized I'd stopped dreaming long-term dreams. Everything was short-term. Safe. Manageable. I wasn't unhappy. That was the confusing part. I was numb. Comfortable enough not to live. Unfulfilled enough not to rest. The first real crack came quietly. I remember sitting alone in my room one night, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Photos from when I first arrived. My face was thinner. My eyes brighter. There was a hunger there, not just for money, but for meaning. I tried to compare that version of me to the man staring back from the screen now. And for the first time, I couldn't. That scared me more than any rejection letter ever had. I brushed it off, of course. Told myself it was just fatigue. Burnout. Everyone feels like this sometimes. I went to work the next day. Paid my bills. Laughed at the right jokes. Life continued. But something had shifted. Slowly, I started noticing how transactional everything felt. How relationships revolved around convenience. How value was measured in productivity. How easily people disappeared when you were no longer useful. I began to see how often I'd shrunk myself to fit in. How often I'd swallowed opinions. How often I tolerated disrespect because I didn't want to rock the boat. And the hardest realization of all crept in late one night, uninvited and unwelcome. If I left tomorrow, what would I actually be leaving behind? The answer wasn't as big as I expected. That thought stayed with me. Followed me on buses. Sat with me during lunch breaks. Whispered to me in quiet moments. Still, I didn't act. I'd invested too much time. Too much pride. Too many explanations. Then came the residency approval. I should have been overjoyed. That's what everyone expected. Messages flooded in. Congratulations. Celebration emojis. You've finally made it. I stared at the letter for a long time. 25 years. 25 years of waiting, hoping, enduring. And all I felt was empty. That was the moment I couldn't ignore anymore. The moment the illusion finally cracked. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just a quiet, devastating clarity. This thing I had chased for half my life, this status, was meant to be a foundation. Not the finish line. And yet, somehow, it had become the only thing I could point to and say, this is what I achieved. I didn't spiral. I didn't rage. I didn't fall apart. I went very quiet. In the weeks that followed, I started pulling inward. Observing. Replaying moments I'd rushed past for years. I began asking questions I'd avoided. Hard ones. Uncomfortable ones. Where did my energy go? Who benefited from my silence? What parts of myself did I trade for stability? I realized how often I'd chosen safety over growth. Familiar struggle over uncertain freedom. I saw how systems don't need to oppress you loudly if they can exhaust you quietly. People around me didn't notice at first. I still showed up. Still functioned. Still smiled when required. But inside, something fundamental was rearranging itself. I stopped over-explaining. Stopped chasing validation. Stopped saying yes out of fear. And almost immediately, things began to change, not because I forced them to, but because I stopped holding them together. Some relationships weakened. Others dissolved entirely. People I'd supported for years grew distant when I stopped being available on demand. Workplaces that thrived on my overcommitment suddenly saw me as less enthusiastic. It was ironic. The less I tried to control outcomes, the more clearly I saw the truth. I wasn't indispensable. I was replaceable. And strangely, that truth was freeing. I watched as systems I'd trusted revealed their limits. As loyalty proved conditional. As effort went unnoticed unless it served someone else's agenda. There was grief in that. Real grief. Not loud, but heavy. I mourned the version of myself who believed patience alone could build a life. Who thought endurance guaranteed fulfillment. Who postponed joy for a future that kept moving. But alongside the grief came something else. Respect. For surviving. For adapting. For not becoming bitter. I began redefining success quietly. On my own terms. Not in income or titles or approval letters, but in alignment. In peace. In honesty. I set boundaries, awkward ones. Unpopular ones. Necessary ones. I learned to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it with busyness. Learned to listen to my own voice again, even when it trembled. The final truth didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived on an ordinary day. I was walking home at the same route I'd taken for years when it hit me. The question was never whether it was worth it in the way people usually mean. The real question was whether I'd learned to live, not just exist, in the process. Residency didn't give me identity. It didn't give me time back. It didn't validate my sacrifices. It simply removed one fear. Everything else was still my responsibility. And that realization didn't break me. It grounded me. I stopped seeing the last 25 years as wasted. They weren't. They shaped me. Taught me endurance, perspective, and humility. But I also stopped romanticizing struggle. I understood that survival is not the same as fulfillment. That staying is not the same as growing. That sacrifice without intention can quietly hollow you out. Today, when I look back, I don't feel regret the way I used to. I feel clarity. I know now that no country, no status, no system will ever give you a sense of worth if you don't claim it yourself. That comfort can be just as dangerous as chaos. That time will pass whether you are living deliberately or not. And if someone asked me now, after 25 years, was it worth it? I wouldn't answer quickly. I'd pause. I'd breathe. And I'd say this. I don't know.